I want to thank both of you for the good job you have done in a relatively short time, and you know, I have seen an improvement in my district. And Administrator Mills, I especially want to thank you for your attention to rural Arizona, for coming to Arizona, and the time that you've spent on the phone with me talking about this. You know, it's still that balance between adequate documentation for small businesses and then making sure they get the money they need. Still seeing that problem in rural Arizona, where even in good times, small businesses struggle. And so when the criteria is really tightened, they don't look good compared to the urban businesses, and we're still struggling with that. And I just wondered, I wanted to follow up a little bit with Mr. Buchanan's line of that. Yeah, I hear from a lot of my small businesses, they would prefer to apply directly to the SBA and not to have to go through a bank, because the major banks who are carrying the SBA loans have good relationships with metropolitan businesses, but they're not informed about how small businesses in rural areas work. And so maybe I'd like your thoughts about the SBA, you know, lending directly. Also, you know, is there any criteria with the major banks that they fund a certain portion of small business loans in rural America?
On the question about rural loans, you know, we're working very hard on that, and I'm actually pleased that I've recently seen some data that actually in Arizona things are lightening, because that was one of the areas that had lagged. On the issue of direct lending, I think the chairwoman has also raised that issue, you know, from the beginning. We looked at it very hard. We had a whole task force around it. The issue of actually executing and operationalizing that has some unintended consequences and some costs related to it. And so we have gone in the direction of looking at the specific gaps and driving the program that we have to reach the areas that are not getting reached, you know, particularly the underserved markets, some of the smaller loans, which are still highly problematic.
Would part of that effort be requiring the banks who receive SBA funds to fund a certain number of or a certain percentage of small business, rural businesses?
We have not yet considered that.
Okay. And then Inspector General Gustafson, you talked, I'm a former prosecutor, so I know a little bit about how hard it is to prosecute white-collar crime. What kind of resources do you need to be able to do a better job?
Well, everybody could use more resources. I have a tremendous staff of criminal investigators, but I appreciate your discussion about prosecutors. I was a former prosecutor too, and I remember white-collar cases, and I hated them because they're hard and they're complex. I'd rather take a drug case any day, in all candor. I think what would really be helpful for us to get more bang for our buck would be, quite frankly, some change in the laws. Right now, not only are these cases tough and complex, but a lot of them, especially like in the contracting area, are no-loss cases, which is to say the government got a contract, the government got services, and you know, especially under federal sentencing guidelines, it becomes very unappealing to go to an assistant U.S. attorney and say, I need you to devote 6 months to this case, and the guy's probably going to get probation. And that's something that my understanding is there had been an approach to the Federal Sentencing Commission and some resistance to that. A lot of times that kind of movement takes a statutory change. And if these people who really are defrauding the government and taking money that is not meant for them are going to prison, a lot of this would stop. And so that's something that would be incredibly helpful. On these complex cases, we have suggested longer statutes of limitation because they are very complex. And I have a good staff, but I have under 50 investigators and billions of dollars out there that I'm trying to oversee, and so it's tough.
Would you?
Yes,
sorry.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
okay.
Just finish your line of thought.
I've lost it.
I'm sorry. Would you yield?
Yes.
I know you're talking about how difficult it is to prosecute this type of white-collar cases. But if we have proper oversight by the agency, right, and then it will make your job much easier.
Actually, the best way to deter these people is hit them in the pocketbook, and that can be done with stronger enforcement. If they think on the front end that they're not going to get to where they're getting the money, that's a really strong deterrent as opposed to maybe getting restitution at the end. It's a lot harder to get it back once it's out the door. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.